How's it going, everyone? Today we have Alex Dumas. He is the CEO of Abundance Daily Coaching. And basically, he is focused on coaching people. He looks into interesting things like psychology. So, again, lots of interesting. So, yeah, let's bring on Mr. Dumas. Let's start having a discussion. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Jimbo. Nice to meet you. I'm doing well, by the way. Yeah, for to answer your question.
Excellent. All right. So, tell me a little bit about who you are, what you're about, and sort of what's your message.
Yeah. So I am a husband, a father. Those are the most important things about me. I've been in the coaching space now since 2018 and born and raised in New York. I live now in North Carolina for the past few years, and it's been an interesting journey of growing up as the youngest of four children. My parents as immigrants from Haiti, learning. I never been to Haiti, but I'm saying like growing up as an American Haitian, like a kind of first generation with some of the old cultural West Indian traditions of like, children don't talk, don't speak up, don't express yourself. Like what is the rules are the rules, right? Follow them, be that. And also the American way of like be free and you can do whatever you want. And so kind of have these polar opposites of ideology, so to speak. But I grew up traditional middle class kid, right? Playing sports, riding bikes, hanging with friends, chasing girls, all that kind of stuff. But I grew up very insecure too, of not expressing myself, of not really being sure if I fit in. Am I really supposed to be here? Do I belong anywhere? And that really caused a thought within me, like, all right, maybe I'm disconnected from people. Maybe I really don't belong. I'm not accepted fully. And I would find self-destructive things, do drugs, do different addictions to complete me or fill me, if that makes sense. And I share all of that because that foundation of not being being disconnected, of being isolated, of not feeling seen or not heard, not validated, it actually influences a lot of the work I do now as a coach when I work with people, when I work with leaders, and being able to help them express themselves and tell their story and show up really powerfully in the world. So that's a bit about me.
Interesting. If I heard correctly, I may not have heard correctly, but you're from the West Indies?
Yeah, my family, my mother, father, they both immigrated from Haiti in the early 1970s, and they didn't know each other. They found each other in New York, fell in love, built a beautiful life together. My mother passed a few years ago, and my dad's still here, but from they were together since the 70s and until she passed about 8 years ago.
Now, mind me if I may ask as well, was there any special influence that your mother may have had or influenced this you becoming, the successful man that you want to be?
Yeah, yeah, my mother's influence is definitely paramount in my life. I didn't necessarily love this back then, but I see now how those sprinkles have happened. She was somebody that would welcome a lot of people into her life. Where we grew up in the Catholic Church, so she was always inviting people over for like Bible readings and prayers and things like that. She was always the type to just strike up conversation with people. I used to get embarrassed by it because, like I said, I felt really insecure. So I wanted to just hide. I didn't want to engage with people that much. I didn't want to have any light shown on me. So this is really interesting that here I'm doing shows like this and podcasts and my own personal time. And she was just always that person to kind of magnetize people and draw people to her. And I think that's a key influence that she's kind of passed on to me, where I tried to run away from that or reject that, but started to recognize like, oh, that's one of my gifts too. Like I can just bring people together. I'm a strong community builder. I call myself a master connector, an MC of sorts, and that's one of the gifts she's given me.
So speaking of your community building, you have a bachelor's of arts in psychology. How do you kind of use that to help you with things such as sales and marketing?
Yeah, it's psychology helped me with the foundation for myself. Of I really went into that study to figure out like what was wrong with me. 18, 19, trying to find my way in the world and just kind of get some meat behind like what's going on with me, like why am I feeling the way I feel. And the way that I've been able to incorporate that in my practice has been really starting to use the analytics of it, because I think people don't, outside of the psychology world, don't really understand like, oh, there's things like means and averages, like, you know, in probabilities and things like that. And I don't project it onto clients, but my focus is really help them gather data of their own success, their own brilliance, because it's easy to, especially when I work with like high performing people, right? Entrepreneurs, small business owners, where they're kind of in a go zone, right? Just next thing. It's like, wait, let's slow it down. Let's look at what's available for you. Let's look at these opportunities, and let's really gather up the data of what you've done and where you've been and what you've gone through, what you've experienced, how that can help propel you, right? And also there's a dark side to that too, right? If I've been successful, if I've been somebody who's been high performing, there's a dark side to that too. And there's no way around that, but just getting awareness to that, recognizing that, and being authentic with yourself of like, man, this is kind of held me back in the past. Me being so driven, me being so ambitious has actually pushed away some relationships. I've actually rubbed people the wrong way. I've gotten in my own head about things, maybe too much analysis, paralysis, all that kind of stuff, instead of, you know, kind of inspired actions, I call it. So, you know, the psych background definitely helps me just to look at the deeper roots of like what's going on here. And, you know, I'm not here to psychoanalyze folks and things like that, but once you kind of connect the dots of like, oh yeah, you know what, I've always shown up this way, right? I'll ask you, Jimbo, like, has there been like times in your life where you felt like, man, I should be doing something, but maybe you've held yourself back, or you felt like insecure about something, or you doubted yourself? And within that, right, you start to look at, all right, well, how's my brain protecting me, right? That's all that really is, right? Our brains, our minds protecting us from this outside stimulus, this unknown thing. And then all of a sudden, we start to take small steps, tiny actions, right? If it was, you know, whatever was going on in your life, if we were working together, I'd be like, hey, you know, let's take a look at what's brought you here, what's got you to this point, right? And we can kind of really backtrack that way and start to create a new path. That hopefully that makes sense for you.
No, it makes perfect sense. Again, this is an excellent thing you're doing, because almost everyone has these issues.
Yeah.
Whether they want to admit it or not, that's a different question. But you really raise an interesting point about, you know, self-improvement sort of, and kind of the culture we live in with entrepreneurship. I think it's called hustle culture.
Yeah.
And it's a lot about kind of jeopardizing relationships, jeopardizing your health, all for success, no life balance whatsoever.
Yeah.
You know, so you really do raise a big point of that. And how do you think that's an actual issue that I brought up, or not so?
It's a real thing, right? I've definitely experienced that in the past. You know, 2014, 2015, I was working in New York. I was building up a financial service practice, and so living in Long Island, traveling to Wall Street or different boroughs to do meetings, recruit people, things like that. And it was just go. I would be on the train, grab a slice of pizza, not really taking care of myself, not really sleeping well. I'm energized, I'm fired up, I'm exhausted at the same time, spending a lot of time away from my wife, my two kids, because I'm trying to make it happen, trying to get after, right? 5 a.m. wake ups, all that kind of stuff. And it was to my detriment. I mean, I'm glad I experienced that, because when I see it with somebody else, it's like, okay, this is where they're at right now. And it's really a scarcity zone, right? It's like, I'm going to miss out on something. If I don't respond to this email, I'm going to miss out. If I don't pick up the phone on first dial again, I'm available. Availability is important. Don't get me wrong, but I did not value rest. I didn't value contemplation, right? It was just, there's so much noise in my head. I'm just trying to get after, I'm trying to make this happen. And nothing was happening, or at least not at the speed that I wanted to. Have you ever had any kind of experience like that? Have you like been in the zone, like, gotta get it, and you're just pushing, you're going uphill against an avalanche, is what I call it.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, I deal with that a lot, especially like even in academia, because there's times where I would procrastinate severely. And I think that this is too much work. I just got to cram this all last minute, and it feels like I'm almost going in reverse of this. Now, it's definitely tough. It does end up working out in the long run, but it usually doesn't leave a very good feeling, and especially when you think about things like performance and you can perform at a high level. I'm not.
Yeah.
You're just thinking, oh my goodness, it is tough. But I don't know if I fully answered that. But what have you kind of gone through personally?
No, that's a good good answer for that, because you said a big thing about performing at a high level, and when you think about people, it could be in the athletic world, entertainment, whatever, right? Or just like our public figures, it always looks like they're going a million miles a minute, and some of them do. But at the same time, they also put a lot of systems in place. They put a lot of people in place to help them. There's somebody organizing for them. There's somebody taking care of these other details, so they remain in their zone of genius. And it's one of those classic things of not hiding, but asking for help. And when we can get to that point, when entrepreneurs, leaders can get to that point, it opens up, but it's also a vulnerable thing, because people, it can be embarrassing. Like, man, I'm a complete mess on the other side, right? I'm buttoned up, I look good, I look great, but the things that people don't want you don't want people to know about you are really the things that can help set you free and help you get to that next level of improvement and growth. So it's being honest with yourself, like, man, where am I struggling here? Where I need help? And who's around me that I can trust with this, and that I know can actually, who are smarter than me, who are more skilled than me. That's also another ego thing, right? Hire people who are smarter than you, or surround yourself with people who are a couple of steps ahead, so that you can kind of catch up, and also you let them be in their zone. They're thoroughbreds, they're racehorses. Let them do what they do, and you can do what you do best too.
I completely agree, but I also think a truly strong person can be vulnerable and can talk about their flaws. I do think that takes a level of strength. It's easy to kind of just bottle up and try to look good all the time.
Yeah,
you kind of need to expose yourself to sort of improve. And kind of going back to kind of you, what types of systems do you put in place to kind of improve yourself and kind of get over your challenge?
yeah. One of the things that's really been helpful for me is having coaches. Yeah, that's been probably like my cheat code, my my Swiss Army knife of sorts, is having coaches and being in communities with people that will encourage me, that will challenge the way I think. And my wife is, super strong with that. That's her in the background, right? We've been together for, we'll be married for 14 years in January, together for 18 years. Well, thank you. And, she's definitely one of the people who's a champion and cheerleader for me. And also, like, think of like a football coach, right? Sometimes they grab you by the face mask, like kind of wake you up, like, what's going on? Where are we at? And that's been incredibly helpful. And I put different things in place, just making sure that I'm intentional, making sure I adhere to like specific things on my calendar, where I know if I'm launching something, right? If I'm going to do a master class or things like that, like this is kind of like more the logistical, technical things. Like calendars have helped me. They serve me tremendously, just to know where I'm at, making sure I'm blocking off different things, having my alarm set for separate things. And a key thing that's really been helpful, especially since the pandemic, the height of pandemic in 2020, is making sure that I don't give myself computer fatigue. So if I used to go from like meeting to meeting and bounce around for a while, and I recognize like, oh, I'm right back in my New York energy of running to the train and hustling and bustling. Okay, all right, give myself a buffer. 30 minutes before a call and after a call, it's just dead zone time. So if I need to eat something, if I want to just read something, or I want to reflect, or listen to music, get myself into state, get myself into my peak state, I'll do those things, because it's tough to be like, if we're blocked up for 10 to 11, then 11 to 12, and then 12 to 1, you're just carrying the next meeting to the next meeting, and nothing's really getting solved. I can't bring my highest level of thinking, my highest level of creativity to a conversation, and now I'm robbing that person of that time. I've actually wasted their time because I'm not showing up at my best, and vice versa, right? If they're doing the same thing, they're not giving me their full authentic attention. They may be thinking about the conversation they just had, and then what they're going to be doing later tonight, and where they're going for eating, right? And it's like, no, we're right here. This is now. Let's be here now. And that's been one of my best systems. Like coaching's helped me do that, and also just little technical things have helped me do that too.
So, kind of going back to your skill set here, what are some of your most effective strategies for both generating leads and sales?
Yeah. One of the key things for me is simply being with people. And I know that's going to sound kind of corny or like, what does that even mean? But just being present with somebody, having a conversation, being in different groups, being in different communities, being a person of service, right? I've definitely increased my social media exposure output in the last couple of years. And I recognize the important thing for me is it's not really about me in the sense of how great I look, how impressive I'm trying to be, but really coming from a space of how can I be expressive? How can I transfer my enthusiasm to somebody else? And people recognize that. And I'll get messages all the time like, man, thank you for sharing this. I really needed to hear this. Man, this is right on time. And it's not from a place I'm trying to get anything. I'm just looking for how can I serve this person? How can I make a difference? And inviting people to conversations, inviting people to different things that I'm doing, and letting them be the ones to be like, you know what, I want some more of this, and then we can have further discussions about that. But I think the key for myself and for maybe someone in your audience is going to be like, how can I connect with this person? How can I really separate myself from the pack of the noise of social media? It's loud, it's crazy, it's kind of like Wild Wild West, and you're just going to be like a whisper in that person's ear and just like really connect with somebody, really get into their world, and you'll be somebody they don't forget, right? And really think of it as the long-term gain of, if you really approach it from this energy of like, I gotta get this person, that repels. It's like, it's gross. It's the creepy guy in the club, right? They're just lurking. It's gross. It's just, hey, I'm here to serve you. And if you really pay attention to what people are saying and the words behind the words, that's been a gift of mine. And people respond to it, they resonate with it.
You mentioned, paying attention. How do you kind of use that to kind of identify the right target audience for maybe some type of product or some type of service?
Yeah. A thing that I like to focus on is what they call like the psychometrics. Some people might focus on demographics, where you might ask that same question to somebody else. They might be like, my target audiences are men who are 25 to 35 and they earn a certain income level. And, that's all fine. I'm more connected to who somebody is, right? Their way of being. Is this I look at it like this. If I wouldn't invite that person over to my house, I probably wouldn't want them as a client. So is this person fun? Does this person have integrity, right? Will they do the things they say they're going to do? Are they ambitious? Are they relentless, where obstacles in life won't knock them down? It may take them off their feet for a second, but they'll get back up, right? My best work has been served with people who just have that level of tenacity and drive, and that is what fuels me. That's what excites me, because if they're ramped up at a level, like now I'm coming up with them, right? Or they're meeting me, we're matching each other, and that makes for fun coaching partnerships. If I'm trying to like pull a person and motivate them and kind of carry them, it's like I can't carry that far, but I can run with you. We can go side by side, or you beat a rabbit, let me catch up to you. That's even more fun and exciting for me. So a lot of my best work has been with entrepreneurs, small business owners, executives. My philosophy sometimes can be a shock to their system of like slowing down. They may, you think of a high performing person, they think slowing down means the world's going to fall apart. I'm just going to be lazy and eat Cheetos and stuff like that. I look at it like, no, let's slow down enough that before you send this email, where are you coming from with it? Is it like, I'm trying to get something from you? Am I trying to talk at you, or am I talking with you? Am I collaborating with you? Am I doing things in my own life that are feeding my soul? Right. I have worked with this one client, and she was super high performing, like really after it. And she expressed to me that she'd been like that her whole life, and just being the person to get things done. And that's a beautiful thing. And through one of our work together, one of the sessions, she was like, I don't really have any hobbies. Okay, well, what's something you really love to do? Like, what's something that's been a passion of yours? What's something that's been exciting for you? She's like, well, taking pictures, photography. All right. And from there, she decided to create her own little Instagram page. And that may not sound like a lot, like, oh my God, wow, Instagram page. But she found something outside of the work. She found something that she can use her lens of life to snap photos of and slow down to see things, to see beauty in life. And does it make her a better wife? Does it make her a better entrepreneur? I would venture to say so.
And how do you kind of help to create a better?
Sorry, say that question again.
So how do you sort of create better brand identities?
One of the most fun things I like to do with people is just simply tell me your story, right? Tell me about your background. Tell me about where you've been, your dreams, even the secret dreams, the dreams that you may have been embarrassed to talk about. One time I was working with somebody who wanted to get into the coaching space, and she had a pretty extensive military background, and she's having all these doubts and fears. Like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm qualified. All these different things, and this is after she read me down her resume of sorts. And so I slowed her down. I invited her to a game right then and there, live on the call. I was like, hey, can I tell you about this person that I know? And so I started reading back all of the things that she told me about being this go-to person and all these different things. And she was stunned. She's like, I've never heard myself like that before. I've never experienced myself created like that before. I didn't recognize that. So to your question about like the brand identity, it's tapping in with those gifts. Right? We all have them. You have this gift of podcasting, and I'm sure there's several other things that you do. So how do I use it? How do I leverage that into the world? Because I think that's the thing that gets into people's way. Like, yeah, this is good, but who would pay me for this? Like, anybody will pay for anything, right? If the internet has taught you anything, I've seen things for people who are professional cuddlers. You have all these other sites like OnlyFans things. Like, people will pay for things. So there's a way to monetize your gift in some capacity, but it's really about you being honest and authentic about the things that you bring to the table. It might be something so simple, or you don't even acknowledge it at first. It's like, well, anybody can do that. Like, no, not anybody. You have this opportunity, you have this ability, right? For me, I'm a very creative person. You might be like, well, that's very vague, but like, when I'm working with people, I can see things, I can get to a level within them that they didn't even think about, because I'm seeing the world from a different place. I'm seeing things from what I call the field of possibility, and playing in that place is really fun. So where it comes to people sharing that and monetizing that, being the brand is really the important thing. Like, what's your identity? Are you really locked in with and secure within yourself to be yourself? Because that's what people are going to pay for at the end of the day.
Thinking of what people are paying for to just kind of help the audience get more grasp of what you're doing. Can you tell me a bit more about your business?
Yeah, my company is Abundance Daily Coaching. And the premise of that is really looking at that there's abundance for all of us. That's a key component for me that I've shared on my daily podcast called Love, Serve, Care, that you're born to live your life in abundance. And the work I do has been with other business owners, leaders, executives, and the big focus is on communication and two sides of communication. One, the internal dialogue, what we're saying to ourselves, how we are being with ourselves, super important. And it kind of goes back to your question about like brand identity, things like that. And then the external communication, right? So I'll just throw this on you right now in your case, right? So here you are, you're Jimbo. And if you're having a thought of, man, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't know if people are going to listen to podcasts, I don't know if people are going to watch the videos, I don't know if I'm going to be able to create clients. If you're having that kind of internal dialogue with yourself, now when you're going out into the world, when you're having conversation with people, you might be saying the words like the good words, but inside that inner feeling like, yeah, I'm not good enough. And it's okay to have a little bit of that. But when we're helping people change their lives, when I'm helping somebody change their life, I gotta be sold out. I gotta be enrolled into what I'm doing, who I'm being, and this being a actual useful service for somebody, not just because I need something. I don't need anything from anybody. I want to come from that place of I can really help this person. And if they feel that and I'm locked in, then it becomes an easier conversation versus it'd be like you trying to sell me like hair cream. Like I don't have hair. You know, anybody who's listening to this audibly, I'm a bald man. Jimbo's got these beautiful locks. Like it would be a disconnect, right? So I'm using that as a funny example, but it's really just my work is helping people get what they want and be the best versions of themselves doing that and have a good time too, because that's the key component too. I have this philosophy that if it isn't fun, it doesn't get done. And you mentioned about like procrastinating. I don't necessarily believe in procrastinating because it's not that you're not capable. It's just that you found something else you'd rather be doing than this task at the moment. So I find ways to create games within some mundane things within the task that we don't want to do. But if we can find little opportunities to create a game or create something that's exciting within it, it's a little bit easier. You can bring a little bit higher value to that task or project than just, all right, I got to crunch this number. I got to go through the motion. Life's too short to go through motions.
Well, all, excellent words, and again, once again, you're very correct because I think, at least for my bachelor's degree, I was trying to get into this scholarship program. I felt like an absolute idiot. It took me about 6 years to graduate with my undergrad degree. Okay, I was a very slow student, and I dealt with a lot of imposter syndrome because everyone else just looked way smarter than me.
Yeah.
So perhaps, it was only until like the third year that I finally started to kind of change my mindset and get a lot more positive. But again, I had problems reading, I had a lot of dyslexia, and so it took me a long time to kind of make it into my own position. And kind of with you, were you always so certain or confident maybe in your intelligence or your abilities, or did you kind of have to grow into that in order to kind of become this, this master coach, if you will?
Definitely not. It definitely took me a while to get out in high school. Well, even like through middle school, I was like a summer school kid, right? I struggle with math. I struggle with science, and it's just different concepts. I just couldn't understand. I just didn't get it. It just didn't connect with me. And even through college, I almost flunked out one year. This was my one solo year of going away to school. Like I started off with community college and I went to a school in upstate New York, and it was my first time being unsupervised. I'm 19, 20 years old. I mean, right, do the math, girls going crazy. I'm wild and losing my mind, depressed, homesick, all the above. Nearly flunk out. I had like a 1.8 GPA, which is like, it's like dirt. And I turned things around because I found a little bit of purpose. And I'm curious for you, right? 6 years to get this undergrad. Was there like a different turning point for you? Was there like a moment, or you said you started to get positive with yourself and not feel like an imposter? Like, was there a moment like you're like, hey, you know what? I gotta like step this up. I'm better than this. What's being reflected on these grades is not who I am. Does that make sense?
Of course, I was broke in my parents' basement during COVID, and I was like, look, I need to start a business. And that's when I started Demi Dad radio station, the rock reggae station. And then it slowly turned into this business. But then further than that, I I was in this other program where I was supposed to make my major. After dedicating about 2 semesters to it, I ended up getting kicked out. So I switched between 4 different majors. I've started a business now. And suddenly I get into media and communication. So now I'm doing something, which is my podcast, which I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
I'm further pursuing my goal with, this new major. And suddenly I go from feeling depressed, feeling like garbage, to now feeling, wow, I have a direction. I have a meaning, So that's when I sort of had an uptick. That's when I realized, because I just found something that I was actually, passionate about after that downhill spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Right. And you said the big word, right? The passion behind it. Like you found something that inspired you, that lit you up. And I would venture to say if we were working together, like, you know what, Jimbo, tell me about how that little spark, how that translates in different areas of your life. Like what else do you find passion? What else fulfills you and sustains you, right? And starting to connect all these dots, like, wow, I have a lot of things in my life. Because I think what you mentioned before about like being an imposter, that's us doing like the social media life where we're looking at everybody's highlights. We're looking at everybody else who's so much better than us, who's ahead of us. Man, I'm so stupid. I'm so small, right? Whatever thoughts we're having, these disempowering thoughts. When we start to shift into, what am I good at? What do I love to do? What am I creative at? Those things start popping up all over the place. You start meeting people randomly, right? These coincidences, these random happenings that go on in our life. It's not because our frequency, our vibration is seeking out those things that are useful, that we're good at, right? The knowledge and those things have always been there, but now it's important to us. Is now I get to, in my case, I like working with really interesting people, with fun people. Well, guess what? I bump into fun people all the time. They've always been there, but now my lens is looking at who are these really sharp people who are exciting. They have interesting stories, and I get to be with them. It's a joy.
Now, before we wrap this up, I'm interested to know what are some of these fun people? How did they sort of influence you to further pursue your goal or your mission?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? I missed the first part.
Yeah. So, who are some of these fun people that you met, and how did they kind of influence you?
Oh my gosh! So this one person that comes to mind, this guy, his name is Steve Hardison. He's regarded as the ultimate coach. He doesn't give himself that title. A lot of people have given him that title, and he really is. He's just somebody who lives life wild in the sense of what you and me would kind of consider like normal construct rules. Like he'll do things just like there's been so many times like he just calls me up like out of the blue, right? And that may not sound like a big thing, but right in this world, right in this new century, calling somebody is like, whoa, can't you text me, send me a meme or something like that, right? And he'll do things like that. There's a lot of people in my world who just have like interesting practices. People who take people on like journeys on hikes and things like that, and coach like in the woods. Just unusual things where you would think, well, it's business type. You got to be buttoned up and we're going to be boardroom stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I love those folks that just were kind of like misfits who think outside of the box and are willing to just test things out and go beyond different boundaries. I think that's one thing that like keeps things fresh. It inspires me and shows me, oh wait, that's possible. They're just being themselves. Like somebody coaches from an RV, they just travel around and do these different things. I'm like, man, that's cool. I don't necessarily would do that, but that's great that somebody is open to seeing what that looks like of just traveling and doing things like that. So I love people who are like that in my world, and they fuel me. They allow me to just be comfortable being me.
So, you mentioned feeling comfortable being you.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? Could you kind of go more in depth on that, or maybe people could also begin to feel more comfortable?
Yeah, for me, I think it helped with like this context. When I was younger, growing up in elementary school, middle school, high school, I had these two versions of me. Right at home in my neighborhood, I'd be very quiet, kind of reserved, insecure, all these different things like I mentioned earlier. And at school, I was loud and brash, the class clown, doing whatever I could to get attention. And at that same time, that also created resentment because like nobody really ever got to know me, right? Get to know the real me. I never could go deep with somebody. I've never have a serious conversation. Everything was always turned into a joke. It was relentless, like nonstop, like. And I got to a point of like, man, I don't know if people are laughing at me or laughing with me, right? And then that brings up all these insecure feelings, right? The real inner side of me, like, oh my God, I'm scared. I'm a scared little boy. And so when I talk about being comfortable with myself, I still love laughing. I still love like humor is a big part of my life, a big part of my work too. And I also recognize that I can be serious, I can be deep with people. And I think when people meet me in person, they kind of get surprised, right? Because sometimes I can be a big personality and just ramped up a lot at times. And then they may be like, wow, you're like really chill, like you're like more mellow and just relaxed. I'm like, yeah. And I'm fine being either. I'm fine like being like when I do speaking, when I'm at events, like, yeah, it's time to ramp that up, right? This crowd is the energy. I love being with people. And then there's all the times like, yeah, I just need like solo time for me. And there's nothing wrong with that. I used to think there was something wrong with that, or people would come up to me. I was like, man, Alex, you're quiet. Like there's something wrong. And then that would put an idea in my head, like, man, I'm quiet, man. There's something wrong with being quiet. Oh, I need to like, get crazy again and keep up the mask, the performance. So being comfortable with myself is really just me not being. I'm not here to perform for anybody. I'm just here to express who I am. In some moments, that might be me just being chilled, whatever. Other times, it might be me being like super crazy champion rah dude. And other times, it's just being deep and having these powerful conversations with people. And they're all elements of me. There's no one size Alex. It's just me. Take me, love me, leave me, whatever.
All right. So, what's kind of the future of you and your business? And also, is there any, sort of closing words you'd like to give to the audience here?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, and thank you for having me on the show again. And I appreciate you and what you're doing. And things like this are what I'm definitely creating more of opportunities to share myself, get on stages, virtual stages and in-person stages. That's definitely the vision of the business and where I'm going, where I think when people can get a real experience of who I am, what I do, and sometimes that could be one-on-one, and in this case, it could be one-to-many. I think that helps. Not only obviously it helps my business, but it just helps people in general, where they get to hopefully see a piece of themselves within my story, and they feel inspired to just be themselves. And I think more people that are fully self-expressed, not hiding, not putting on a mask performance, that helps all of us. And so that's just my goal, to help people be authentic themselves. And that creates the abundance, that generates the frequency of tapping into this endless stream of wealth that's available for all of us. And we can get that, then life is good, especially for people of color in the world too.
You're too right. Last thing though is, how can we reach?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. You can reach me at alexdumascoaching.com. I have a free gift for y'all there. It's called, this is audio recording I did called Everybody Wins. It's 10 disciplines for win-win communication. So it's some of these different principles that I've layered in within this conversation, but I kind of outlined them in a more concrete ways. So there's things like, there's principles like generous listening, there's principles like presence. There's just different powerful questions that you can ask yourself, because I'm a big believer that we live into the questions we ask ourselves. We ask ourselves really powerful questions, and we can live a powerful life. So go to alexdumascoaching.com. You'll get your free download there. There's more info about me and the work I do, and opportunities for you to work with me if you'll call to that.
Thank you again, Mr. Dumas. It's been a pleasure. And I also like to thank the audience here for watching us. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, appreciate you, Jimbo. Thank you, brother. Stay blessed.